Today I'm going to show you something that many live acts and producers take ages to do, which is when you have a bunch of tracks, how do you make a live set from that? If you want to perform live, maybe on YouTube or on a club or on a festival, or also how do you take ideas and turn them into finished tracks much faster? I'm going to show you today, and it took me over 20 years to get to this state of workflow. Hey, and welcome back to Rapid Flow. My name's Eric. I'm the founder. At Rapid Flow, we do everything we can to make you faster in the studio. Before we get started, if you want to dive deeper into this, I'm hosting a free live webinar on Zoom. There's a link in the description where I'm going to show you how to set up the controllers, how to get better mixes and masters, and especially how to finish tracks much faster. So if that's something you want to see live and be able to ask me questions, then check out the link in the description. Let's get going. The big challenge with doing anything to do with producing electronic music in a DAW is that you can end up with a bunch of different tracks and projects that don't really sound the same, don't really fit together, and it just takes a huge amount of time to export multi-track stems to be able to build a proper live set. And what this does is remove all of that. What in essence you can do with this workflow is start from the top and start building your track ideas sort of by a couple of lines, and then get to a place where you can just play through your arrangement using a controller and skipping to the next scene, and be able to actually go through all of your ideas and perform them live, whether it be on YouTube or in a club or in a festival, but also using this workflow to actually create sequences in real time using the session view, but tracking into the arrange view. Let me give you a high-level overview so you have an idea of what's going on here, because I can imagine this may look quite complex to begin. So we have all the tracks laid out in session view. In the beginning, these first 18 tracks are all the fundamental building blocks of most electronic music tracks, and they come together on these faders of these True Control services. Now, behind here is these percussion tracks, which come together on this Novation Launchpad Mini Mark III, which is just dedicated to launching clips. For example, I know I can launch my snare there, things like that, or I can launch some hi-hats there if I would like. The goal with doing it this way is that you have dedicated control surfaces and launchers so that certain things that you always need are in arm's reach. Now, in the back here, you'll see a bunch of channels loaded with our VST instrument called ZenSphere, which is what I use to generate sounds these days. I mean, as you may see, I have a pretty significant amount of gear in the studio and synths and stuff. I mean, a lot of it's boxed up since I made ZenSphere, but I'm actually finding myself just using the presets in ZenSphere because it just sounds exactly like when I do a lot of effort to track these synths into my session. What we're listening to right now here to begin with is just a kick and just a bass, but as you can see on this bass track, there's a couple of basic processors going on to be able to do certain things, but what it's actually doing is taking its sound in real time from the instrument called ZenSphere Bass. You see that? And I've set it to work post effects but not post mixer, because that channel is actually turned all the way down right here. We're not actually hearing it through its channel, we're hearing it through the bass track. And this is the first big takeaway I'd like to give you. If you have your basic harmonic melodic elements and your drums set up as audio tracks, and you just track your sounds into them from whatever VST or hardware synth you're using, and your whole setup doesn't change anymore with your levels on your faders, basically what you end up with is a repeatable, playable live set or a clip sketch, where if you put all your faders to the top, you're going to have a balanced mix. So as you can see, this is my basic fundamental mix. This is what I can always go back to. If I start my scene and push up all the faders, this is what I'll get back to. So now let's say that, okay, I'm happy with this bass. I'm gonna tweak it a bit, and I've hardwired a control here to open the filter of that bass. And if I feel like it's not quite balanced maybe with the kick drum, I can just bring it up on the instrument channel, and I want this to start really just very deep. Maybe something like that. So I've just used a utility. So as you can see from ZenSphere, there's nothing else on this because it's all pre-processed with outboard gear. That was the whole goal of making this synth. So right now, we have the bass line going into the bass track from an instrument, and now I can start tracking. So let me check where my metronome is. That's the one. Now we're tracking this bass line. And I'm gonna do a couple of takes just without filter, but I'm also gonna give myself options, so I'm gonna tweak it with the filter a bit. Let me show you. So that's now my tracked bass, and as you can see, I'm going to start a new line here to really show you this concept from scratch. As you can see, if I double click on this, you'll see I recorded it here, and there is my sweep. And to begin with, I don't actually want to have the sweep in the track because I'm starting to build now. So I just want like a mellow kind of start to the bass line. I'm going to maybe do something like this to just have something that loops nicely. And now what I could do is actually, if I wanted to, I could remove this instrument. So if you're using very heavy CPU plugins to get your sound, then now you can just say buy bass, because this is like your play area, your sandbox, where you can just load a ton of instruments and just make crazy sounds, and you track them into the first couple of tracks. And then the beauty of this is they're there in audio now. And like if you save this project with Collect All and Save, you'll never lose parts anymore, and you won't have to deal with instruments that maybe don't exist anymore in a couple of years, or all the typical hassles. Let me bring in this instrument now, which is, I'm going to use it for a pad to keep adding to this track. And this is one of the sounds I recorded. Let me show you what it sounds like. And this is literally how it comes straight out of ZenSphere going to your master. As you can see, there's nothing on it except the utility, which I'm going to use to track this sound at a level where it feels like it will be correct for the track. So I'm going to select now my pad track, and I'm going to select the audio from the ZenSphere pad channel. I'm going to put it post effects, not post mixer, because I don't want to record it or hear it twice. I'm going to pull my fader now. My MIDI is still going to exactly the same instrument that I had loaded before, but I'm actually monitoring it through this pad channel, which this way of working, actually, it's kind of, like maybe a little anecdote. Like, this is the way we used to work in the old days when you were tracking to tape. Like, you would listen through the tape because that's your medium you were capturing on, and that was the truth. Not like what was coming into the mixer or was leaving the mixer channel or the group, but post tape, like playback head monitoring. So this is that same workflow. What we're going to capture now is exactly what we're going to get if I bring this fader up to 0. So what I'm going to do is tweak this pad sound so it fits with this kick and bass in the context of this track as it is. So let's go. Let me bring back the instrument. And this actually would be something I would track with the filter all the way open to give myself options later on. I'm going to adjust its gain. I'm going to go an octave down here. Oh, I love that. So as you can see, monitoring through the track, check where my metronome is. And let's go. Something like that, right? I'm not going to go all overboard here. I just want to show you this in concept. So now I could remove or switch off the MIDI on this track. And now we have that in here. Check it out. So I really like the way it started here. And this is the beauty of capturing everything in audio. You're much more flexible to just do this kind of stuff. I like how it started here. So let's check this. Cool, that sounds really nice. It comes a little bit late. This is a nice little trick that if you hold Control Command on a Mac, you can actually shift your start point without locking to the grid. So I want this to be a little bit faster because I played it a little late. You see this little knob here? I hope you can kind of see it. It's labeled pad. This is a high cut on the pad channel. And And I have exactly the same, for example, for the percussions, my hi-hats. And let's say now maybe I would like to look for some chords. I'm going to load a chord instrument. Right now the fader is up because I want to hear what's going on here. Let me grab this here and let me open its filter. Okay, I'm going to use the arpeggio here just to make my life a bit easier. There's the beauty of the Waldorf Iridium in that it has such a great arpeggiator. And the first thing to do in the case of using an external trigger for this is I want to get the timing on this super tight. So I'm going to go over here to my multi-clock. It's a little bit before the beat. Now it's on time. And now I want to try to experiment with doing some different arpeggio patterns. Okay, that will do. What I'm going to do in this case actually is now track in the MIDI, very kind of, classic. I'm actually just going to do this on the track. However, before I do that, I am going to pull this fader down and I'm going to monitor this and I'm going to put this on the harmonic element. I've just decided to do it there. I'm going to tell it I want you to grab it from 35 cent sphere. And now I'm monitoring as soon as I put this post effects, not post mixer. Why is the sound different now? Because the harmonics channel filter is still closed on the monitoring channel. I've just adjusted it now with the controller here. Let's track this in. Okay, I'm gonna grab this, check my metronome. There's the one. Okay, that's enough for this quick little demo. So now I've tracked in this harmonics part and I can tweak it now again with the dedicated knob on that monitoring channel. So like if you don't map controllers a lot to stuff, because it's like your synths are always changing stuff, this is the fix. You can take something like these two control surfaces that I have here and hard assign high cut filters or whatever it is that you need to channels where they're always active. And then you record sounds into those channels and your controller setup can stay the same and you never have to think about this stuff anymore. So it's like using a DAW like a 24-track multi-track where instead of going from side to side, you're going from top to bottom. And on every track of the multi-track, you have effects and compressors and stuff inserted, like on your monitoring paths on an inline console, if that makes any sense. The older among you know what I'm talking about. And for example, a nice little trick, something that I really like to do with Console 1 is shorten sustain on sounds like this because it kind of gnarlifies them. Have a listen. It's lost some gain now. So what I want to do is now take this recording. I'm not going to change this on the fader or something. I'm going to change it here. And actually, I think this loop would be cool if it was really simple. Now it's looping properly. And again, it feels like it's a little behind the beat. You can even see it. I'm going to move this a little bit. There's our next element now for the track, right? Okay, let's take this sound now. I'm going to use my normal MIDI controlling again. Things like this sound has its filter closed. One of my favorite sounds from Zensphere. This could be cool for the intro maybe. But let's listen to what this would sound like in the context of the track. And I'm going to call this melody. I'm going to grab my melodic. I'm going to set it to record from heart. I'm going to take this off because we don't need that anymore. We're done already here. I'm going to go again, post effects. There we go. It's a little loud. So what I'm going to do is adjust this in the syn, and I like to do this on the VCF because it changes the saturation a bit, make it a little bit smoother. So let's now track this next sound in. Let me see what I'm going to play here. So we're going to record now this nice little sound into this tape machine. That's it. You probably noticed I left the reverb ringing a bit just to have options later in case I'm going to let the sound kind of run off somewhere. I played a little late here, but let's listen. I'm going to do my trick again with hitting Command and shifting the start of the playback head a little bit into the clip so it's a bit tighter. Although the rest I played is more correct. This is also actually a good trick. As you can see, around here, timing starts to get tighter. It's pretty good there, but here it's not good. So what I do is I'll lock the points where I didn't play tight. And now I can do the thing that Ableton is known for, which is to stretch the audio a bit. But I don't want to stretch it through the whole clip, which is why I created this locks here. We don't actually need this one. One is enough. So let's have a listen now. Yeah, like all of these feel really nice and tight. The second one was also still a little late. So I'm just going to use again. And I think actually I overcomplicate things. This would be nice as a very simple short little loop like that. Let's listen. And it's not looping nicely now because this is not a pattern I played that loops in counts of 4. I hope you're getting the idea that by using a workflow like this and by having a template where all of your tracks are already set up to go to, in my case, a mastering bus, which is at the back here, which is what's processing all of these sounds to just like squeeze them all together to make sure you get like commercial type loudness. You're now able to, if you would want, stream this maybe on a YouTube video, or actually, you know, for the ones that want to do that, let's say you have 10 of these clip lines with different ideas and maybe some noise fades and some cool samples and some found sounds and stuff. You can imagine how easy it would be now to start a new row, put in a new bass line and harmonic melodic elements maybe in some different well-suitable key, and just keep going like that. And then once you have the second line, I'm just going to say now this would be the second track, you could go through your clip launcher here on the APC in my case and skip to this and use your faders and effects to blend from one track to the next and just play through your whole arrangement live using controllers. And I can't begin to tell you how big this is because A, you don't lose time anymore setting up all of your channels and like compression and EQ and delays and all that stuff is done because you're always working in the same kind of workflow. So if your kick and bass and everything sounds good once, why keep going back to zero if you can just keep recording into those kinds of channels? And that's what's so cool about having a workflow where all of that is already pre-configured and ready to go. So if you want to save yourself the hassle of building this, this is the Eric Hiram Ableton template. It's on rapidflow.shop. But you can adjust this and adapt it to your own need. Like I've done some crazy stuff here, like not crazy, some stuff here, like, you know, I use microtonic for hi-hats because it lets me do really cool things with the controllers. Let me show you. And what I also do a lot is use the effects here, which are routed to a super channel. It's called, it's like DJ effects. Let me show you what I could do with that if I wanted. So you can use that to kind of shift the energy in your track and move things up and down. There's a bunch of videos on the channel where I show actually how to use this template in a lot more detail. But today I wanted to primarily show you this workflow of using line by line by line the session view to build up your tracks and using the session view like a tape machine, and then having all of your complex instruments, you know, your VSTs, whatever it is you're tracking. I mean, this could be an audio track here, and I could be tracking in one of my hardware synths, but again, I would be sending it to one of the first tracks on the template here. and make sure that when I bring up all my faders to the top, they sound correct because I'm tracking it at the correct level for it to function as part of my live set. If you would want to sequence this into a track, there is a system that we use where you basically perform it live. Like, let's say you wanted to start the track. I would look for what would be a good start for this. I don't want hi-hats in the beginning. I don't want a snare in the beginning. I've pulled all that now. Like, this would be the intro to my track potentially. That sounds quite nice. And for this, maybe I would actually use the longer bass recording, which opened up here, I think. Yeah, here we go. So then if I would want to turn this into a track, let me show you how I would do that. I would go to the arrange view. So what I'm going to do now is perform this track idea live using my controllers. So just a very quick sketch, because obviously, this, if you're a bit more prepared and you know the track you've just kind of developed or designed, this would be a bit smoother. But I just wanted to show you what happens and how much automation also you can already capture just on the fly by doing things with controllers. And this first idea now, maybe there's parts of this that I like, and I'll use those again in a second or third take. Let's have a listen. So as you can see, everything I just did with the controllers was captured. And you can imagine if you do this a lot, I do this a lot actually on the channel on live streams, you can go from a line of sketches to a full track really fast. So this is my workflow. This is what I can highly recommend to you if you want to be able to jam in the studio, sketch out tracks, have fun. Don't spend hours, like I didn't really, besides the instruments, I didn't open any plugin to process sound because the source material I'm using is good and because all of that stuff I've already done in the template that I'm using. So everything's set up. So if you have a track that sounded really good, just templatize that. Switch to session mode, keep all the tracks, remove all the content, and just build into that and add whatever it is that you need. This is what I would highly recommend for you to check out. If you want to see this more in detail, join our free webinar coming up soon. The AKAI template gives you access to exactly what I've just shown you. Zensphere gives you access to the sounds that I've just shown you. So yeah, if you want to skip all the setup and just be making music, that's the fastest way. We have some great deals right now during the holiday season. So I hope that this was fun and interesting to see and gives you some new ideas of how to look at this potentially. And I'll see you on the next video. Take it easy. Bye-bye.